Kinuch really starts the second section of Kinais, which for us will be the latter portion, which is the Kinais that focus not only on the Churban Beis Hamikdash, but the Kinah over here in Kinuch begins by explaining the line that we've been repeating so many times, that all tsarais, all calamities, all problems, issues, death and mourning are tied back to the Churban Beis Hamikdash. The Kinnah tells over of the crusades that were happening, and he writes, "V'akainin mara elai haruge ashpira, inspire b'sheni b'shmaina by b'yoyim margaya hokra." And this really is born out of that after the Second World War, after the Holocaust, many of the Gedalim got together, the brisker of amongst them, to figure out should we create a new national day of mourning? Should we be creating a day to commemorate all the death, all the misfortune? And the brisker of responded that if all the Rishonim, including Rashi, they went through the Crusades, they went through all their death, and they did not create a new day of mourning, but rather they included it in Tisha B'Av. As we see over here in Kinuch Hey, continues that Kilas HaKodesh Harigasa Mayim B'Zachram, that on this day we remember the Kilas HaKodesh that were murdered, the Kal of Ramazia, B'chuna V'chuya, the community of worms, that if the Rishonim said the Briskarav did not create a new day of mourning, who are we to do so? And rather, we tap in on Tisha B'Av, and we realize that the reason it all comes is Tachas Kein Hayoim Livyasi Al Oireira, that it's because of today, as the Kinnah states, that it's because of Tisha B'Av that all these terrible misfortune happened. But there's one more lesson that's hidden within the words of this Kinnah, and it's that in the times of the Crusades, the Sema already writes that there were communities that after by the Bayesheni, that they were invited back to Yerushalayim, and they responded and they said, communities in Germany, the community in Worms, and he said, no, you stay in Yerushalayim, and we'll stay here in our little Yerushalayim. And the Kinnah portrays how a lot of the death and destruction, how these cities were destroyed, stemmed from the fact that they did not think that they needed Yerushalayim. They thought that they had Torah, they had mitzvahs, they had a Yiddish lifestyle where they were. So why go up to Yerushalayim? So as we read this Kinnah, and as we realize how all misfortune stems from a day like Tisha B'Av, we also have to try to ask ourselves that penetrating question. If the Geulah were to come right now, if we were to have to get up and leave everything behind, would we be so willing? Or are we similar to the community in Worms, that we're so happy, so complacent, so comfortable, that we don't necessarily feel the need to get up and leave everything behind? So as we read this Kinnah, as we realize how all misfortune stems back from the Churban, let us try to ask ourselves that question. And we'll just conclude with one last word. This is really the bookend of the Kinnais, because now we're starting part 2, just to mention one line from the first Kinnah, Kinnah Yud Aleph, a line that can't go unmentioned. When Yirmiyahu Hanavi was Vayikonin Yirmiyahu al Yeshayahu, that first Kinnah that we read, which was in reality the most authentic of all the Kinnais, there's a line over there. And it's a line that we have to remind ourselves of day after day. And it's a line that the Mekainin that he writes, Davak boichet leitzane hadar, that the leitzane hadar, that the leitzanos caused all the issues that happened. The 300 arrows that came and pierced his body like a sieve. Where did this all come from? This came from leitzanos. And the bookends of this first half of our kinnis is we began realizing the power of leitzanos. We have to realize that maybe even on a day like today, when we're being a little bit serious, a thought of leitzanos comes in, a joke from someone else comes in, or maybe we'll read something funny, or we'll see something humorous. And with that, it all goes out the window. But most importantly, is leitzanis against the Gedalim, the lack of realization, as was just spoken about, the Arze Levanain, the Adire Atayra, our Gedalim. We spoke the other day with the boys how somehow when someone has someone in their family that's sick, they'll send to all the Gedalim for brachos, and they'll go and they'll plead and they'll beg and they'll wait for hours to get Rav Chaim Kanievsky just to say buha. But yet, when the same gadol comes out and says this is aser, this shouldn't be done, all of a sudden we have all the questions in the world. When we need the gedalim, we want their brachos. But then unfortunately, when they tell us how to live our lives, we join the ranks, unfortunately, of those leitzanei hadar, repeating such silly lines like they don't know what's going on. They're flying in Shemayim and they're talking to Hashem and getting us the refuahs that we need, the Yeshuas that we need, and they don't know what's going on in this world. So as we start part 2 of Kinais, and as we realize the National Day of Mourning, we do have for October 7th, for Miron, for the Holocaust, for the Crusades, and everything in between. It's today. We also have to realize, how will we answer that question? Are we ready to get up and go with the Geulah? But maybe one place to focus our energies is how we began, is realizing the kayach of the leitzanos, of the media out there that comes in and infects us. And as we repeat it, we don't even realize how we're belittling sometimes Gedailim and Rabbanim, how our sensitivities towards what a Rebbe, what a Rav, what Torah is, unfortunately, has been dampened by all the words that we hear. So maybe with that commitment, the commitment not only to listen to our Gedalim when we need them, but to listen to our Gedalim when they're telling us how to live our lives, then indeed today, the day of national mourning, as we'll read in Kinuch Chav Hey, will be able to be utilized. And when we ask that question, are we ready to get up and leave it all behind? We'll be able to answer in the affirmative together with those Gedalim.